good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here. I'll make a few quick, if we can maybe do a few quick just introductions for the group. We have some folks with us today. We have some new committee members who may not be as familiar with the team. So Brad, we'll start with you, and then if maybe Matt and Brad Mosquito wouldn't mind just a quick intro, that would be great. And thank you for being here, gentlemen.
How's it going? That was very.
They were talking to you.
Yeah, I know.
You can have an
We do have two Brads this morning, don't we? I apologize.
We have Bradley and Brad. So
we do. All right. How about we start with you, Mr. Prescott? Just a quick hello.
Hey guys, I'm Brad Prescott from Benwell Architects, the project manager for your architectural services. Great to see you guys.
Thanks for being here. All right, and Mr. Mosquito.
Yep, Brad Mosquito with Ty and Bond. We had been on board with some of the civil services over the past few years, and getting back up to speed on where you're at now.
Mr. Wheaton, good morning.
Oh, now I'm unmuted. I thought I was muted before. I'm sitting in a parking lot and some random person came up and asked for a napkin. So this is very bizarre. So thank you for for inviting me. And I'm looking forward to understanding sort of the new concepts and from a construction manager standpoint, assisting the district in any way possible.
Great, thank you. Thanks for being here. So this morning we will get started. We are looking first at what we're calling option 1. That is the Reno addition design. We've seen that a couple weeks ago and provided some notes and feedback. So what I'd like to do is ask Brad from Banwell Brad, to walk us through what you've been able to do with that. I'd like to ask everyone, because we do have folks in person and on Zoom, to try to limit sidebar conversations. And Brad, if you could just, when there's a natural good break for you to take some questions, let us know, and we'll work our questions from a speaker list kind of that way around the room.
Can do, Shannon. I was wondering if we could have we have Matt Wheaton for an hour. I think we have Brad Mosquito for about the same amount of time. I was wondering if maybe we could start talking about the schedule and the next steps first instead of at the end.
Yeah, sure. That
Only
sounds
because
good.
Yeah.
So my understanding is we need 3 weeks for DEW. Is that right, Mr. Wheaton?
That is correct. Well, that is correct. Period. Done. Yep.
Okay.
And how about Ty and Bond, Brad? How much time do you need?
Well, once we get the finalized footprint, we probably only need a week and a half to put together the sketches and exhibits you're looking for.
So the schedule that we discussed at the last meeting, that I sent an email to Roger and Shannon afterward, basically it pencils in those 2 parameters, as well as the parameter of the December 5th school board meeting. What we're looking to do is get final feedback on option 1 and 2 today, and then put together designs and scope narratives for DEW to start their conceptual cost estimating, starting after we give that to them on November 1st. I think that DEW would tell you, not to speak for them, that they could probably get everything else, and then Civil could probably follow up in a couple of days after that. So that would give DEW 3 weeks to do their magic, which would get us to November 22nd. In the meantime, Banwell and maybe Ty and Bond, depending on what the committee decides, would meet with the school board on the 16th of November to discuss the plans that we've put together. Not 3D renderings, but just kind of like, hey, this is what we've discovered so far, kind of an update report without costs. And after the estimates come in on the 22nd, they get reviewed with DEW and the JFAC, along with, I'm sorry, I called you guys the JFAC, but you're the building committee, right?
Yeah, building grounds, yep.
Building and grounds committee. So the building and grounds committee would put together their soft costs for this project for both of these options in the same 3 weeks that the estimate's being done. And so we would be reviewing all of that together on the 28th. And the school board would review the design with the soft costs on December 5th. I'm not sure when the documents have to get to the school board or have to be sent to them, but that's kind of the schedule. I'm assuming that the school board needs it in advance. I don't know
Yes.
how many days in advance.
And to that point too, Brad, is the district and DEW will have to work closely together to figure out hard and soft costs. Matt, we'll have to do something similar to what we did the last time with you and I to just determine who's carrying what with the project.
Yeah, 10-4. And I think that form that we used last time was helpful. And I think if we follow that same one and don't recreate it as far as its formatting, it will be helpful and clearer.
Certainly. And then just developing what can we build? How do we phase? I mean, that's obviously, we talked through that as well to figure the amount of portables that we need on site.
Yes, correct.
So I'm assuming that the board needs their package a week before their meeting, so maybe the 29th, which means that everything has to be settled on the 28th without basically any serious revisions. So it's pretty clear going through the schedule and probably through my tone that I think this is very aggressive. We knew when we got our charge from the school board in the summer that this was an aggressive schedule, and the charge was, let's see what we can get done. So that's exactly what we're doing. Typically, and some of the people in this room have been through this process and know this already, but others may not, is that typically when a price comes in, there's some time between the initial conceptual cost estimate and when it's finalized to possibly go back and do some revisions to the scope or even the design to adjust the numbers. This schedule doesn't allow for those opportunities. We're also a little concerned from a designer's perspective about the structural impact of option 1, because we know there's going to be significant impact to the building. And I think we're going to need some structural feedback, which can't really begin until we have an approved plan design, and then we can start working on, 3D, some elevations, basically showing how the roof systems are going to intersect and so forth, the additions interacting with the existing building. So just wanted to kind of raise those reservations and concerns at the very onset of our discussion as we try to set a path forward.
Well, I appreciate that, Brad. I have a question then. So if our designs, we're gonna look at the designs at the board level on the 16th, and let's say let's hypothetically something, we approve designs. What would the timeline look like, a realistic timeline then? Because I'm hearing you say the 12/5 push is not realistic to give us the back and forth time that we need. What would the timeline look like?
Well, yeah. So typically we do multiple options, and then there's an estimate and a few weeks at least after the estimate to revise the designs, and then a few weeks for the construction manager to then redo the estimate. Or adjust the estimate. So, it's basically another, 6 weeks or so baked in. That is a highly subjective schedule because it's very dependent upon how many and how intense the revisions are to any designs you're looking at today or will be looking at after the estimate comes in.
I think that's fair, Brad, but I also think that we really have a good starting path on the type of materials that we want to build the building with. I mean, I'm hoping that we're not putting anything too extravagant into the design. I mean, based off last year's, the revisions, everything that we went through, I mean, we kind of had that as a starting path for us. We backed off from the 100-year building where we were 2 years ago. I mean, we've kind of talked through it, kind of comparing it to the Golden Brook design in Wyndham. So I appreciate that, but I do feel we have a good starting path of we're not going to come back and say, hey, we're not putting 50 skylights in the building and we're not building the entire building out of brick for just examples of things. So I'm hoping the design reflects kind of where we were last year as well.
Well, and one of the presumptions on my part is that the scope narrative essentially for the building guts, as it were, for option B is the same as last time. So with the exception of whatever MEP recommendations you guys are adjusting based on your recent discussions with Yeton. Part one of that, though, is a renovation, which is very different. And the additions are not that different necessarily. But the renovations is a rather intense interpretation of what we're doing to this building for the purposes of estimating. So I just don't want us to minimize that. It's really involved. I see Matt's raising his hand.
Yeah, thanks. So there was a note saying that plans will be reviewed on the 16th. I'm assuming that is 16th of November.
Correct.
Okay, and then DEW's estimate will come in sometime after that. But when will I have the information I need to start the clock of this 3-week commitment?
November,
Has that
the
been
end of the day, November 1st.
Okay, so close the business November 1. Okay.
Yes, architecture and MEP end of the day, November 1, and civil shortly thereafter, no structural.
November 1, civils. Okay, thank you.
All right, and we have a question from a committee member in the room, Mr. Fritz.
Hey, Greg Fritz here. The thing on schedule, I know we're pinching you pretty hard here, and I feel for you. The board review is critical on the 16th, right? After we're doing this, but I think you're gonna pass whatever you give them. So I'm worried more about, do you have enough information to give enough time to get the information your normal quality information to the town by deliberative, and do you plan on improving the quality of the design between the board's vote on the 16th and deliberative in our town?
Well, the 16th is just a discussion of the plans to get something in front of the
Or to
board.
get it on the warrant, isn't it?
Not for this, no, not the six,
No.
we need a cost, the board would like a
Oh, okay.
cost for the warrant, but.
My question still stands, like after all the official board meeting deadline we were talking about the last meeting, we haven't talked about.
Is it
the
realistic?
plan
Conceptual.
to improve it before the deliberative body meets as a town and
Improve it from when?
from whenever they put it on the ballot.
Once it goes on the ballot, it's done.
There's no plan to improve. Okay.
Hi,
that's
Amy.
something.
Well, it is
Yeah.
approved.
No, my question to the builder was after that vote, do we do they have any more time? We're really holding to this one study because there's no ability to improve the quality of their design between the school board voting to put it on the warrant and the town voting whether to pass the warrant.
The school board likes to approve an actual cost.
That's not my question. I'm asking.
So after that, once they approve it, that's approved,
Okay,
right?
okay.
Yeah, I wanna, Shannon, I just
Amy,
wanna
go
remind,
ahead. Yeah. Amy, go ahead, Amy.
yeah, I just wanna remind folks that the date that
Well, yeah.
the public hearing, this is actually the public hearing on January 8th. So that's the first act into, that would be, and we would be presenting public and hearing feedback on it for the first time.
Okay, so I guess my question is, I believe the town person can change the amount on the article at deliberative. So if there were a design that were improved between the time the board voted to approve it on the ballot and then deliberative, a town person could say, this is actually the design that I would like to go and it's lower, and they could change the amount of deliberative. That's the underpinning of my question. So my question is, do you guys as the engineering team, are you anticipating using the time between the board's hearing and deliberative to make any improvements to the design?
So I think,
Answer my question.
I think people are pausing to give you a thoughtful answer, Greg. I don't think we're not
Okay,
answering your question, so
But
that's.
usually when
half a
you
second,
approve it,
yeah.
you try to inform the community about the plan. To change, there's a specific design and cost that's taken months to do, to change it from December 16th or whatever that is, to, and you have a public hearing. It's all possible to change. You can't worry about
I'm not asking Paul, I think the answer is no. I just want to hear from the builders that, my question is that, are you intending to improve after you get it past the board? That's my entire question.
Okay, I'll let the
Thank you.
design people answer.
So Brad, Prescott, I think that question's directed at you.
I think if anything, during the 3-week process of us working with DEW to go through the project, we're just pricing the scope of the existing structure. As far as program changes, that wouldn't be something that the architects or engineers do without feedback from the administration. The administration has taken, this is our 3rd look at these 2 designs to provide feedback. I would think that we're always looking to provide feedback on the project, but we're hoping to get a certain point that we all have a project that's comfortable to bring to the board, to bring to the community. If that answers your question.
So do you mean, so the board votes to put this on the ballot? So
Which that
you-
hasn't happened
But you
yet.
would do that, what, January 8th? At the public hearing?
No, before.
No, before, the December 5th is when we would determine if we're bringing this to a
Then
public hearing
January
or
8th,
not.
the public sees it at the public hearing.
Yes.
And so you're asking Greg, if in February, when we have deliberative, if someone comes up and says, hi, we can do this for 20 million.
Correct.
Let's do this.
Correct.
Now, just from my uneducated opinion and as a member of the public, I would think that that's not prudent, only because there's so much that goes into it. And we've spent years going through this
Right.
design, trying to get it here, and we need, you know, Kathleen's approval, Steve's approval, Mike's approval, the board's approval. Like, I feel like that wouldn't be a goal we would put on our engineers and
No,
construction people to change that design once the board has said, yes, this is what we want to put forward. Is that?
I'm
is that
not
where you're
asking
going?
any, though I agree, everything you've been saying at this table, and I'm not asking any of those questions.
Okay,
My question is only for the gentlemen that are on Zoom. If they intend to spend any hours improving the design post board adoption of the article on the warrant.
I don't think they would do that without the board directing them to do that, because that's what they're doing, what we're contracting and asking and paying them to do.
and that would be an extra cost.
Right.
If we said, can you go?
So
back
I don't
and
think
go-
they would. Like, I think and maybe I'm misunderstanding your question because I'm reading your body
The
language. You
question's
seem
not for
frustrated.
anyone at this table. I'm asking a 20-second question in 6 minutes to get an answer. I just want to hear no or yes. If anyone on Zoom, not at the table, is planning currently on extending the schedule to give you guys extra leeway, are you planning on spending any other cycles post the board approving your plan presented to them before we have a town deliberative session?
Typically,
DEW will,
af-
yeah, let me,
typically,
Go ahead, Matt.
so for DEW standpoint, the answer is no. We do no, once the board approves the number that we've put together based on the plans and information presented to us, we, DEW construction, do not change our numbers unless directed to do so. But it's unlikely. Once the board on December 5th says we're going to put forward a project of X value that is based on scheme, whatever, DEW does no more work between there and any sort of town meeting, unless there is specific questions that are coming up and somebody says, what if that roof was metal instead of membrane? Can you please come to the meeting prepared to discuss this? We will have metrics or cost data to answer a question, but not to change the value that has been approved by the board on or around December 5th. Brad, go ahead.
Typically from a design perspective, once the board approves a design, we are, for all intents and purposes, what we call pencils down in the design industry, because, you know, it's an approved number, it's an approved design. I'm not at liberty to change it. Typically our involvement then becomes assisting with maybe adjusting the graphics for outreach. Like the last time we did what's called a montage board, so you guys could put it in multiple venues around the town as one board with 3D graphics we've already given you, but with site designs and floor plans going along with it, all on one presentation board. That's not a change to the design so much, it's just helping you with some outreach.
Thank you.
Okay, so thank you, gentlemen. So are we good with our timeline questions? Brad's, Matt and Matt? Brad's and Matt? Did we get to a good place with that?
Yeah, I'm good.
Yep, I've got my marching orders. I'm just glad that we're all holding hands, understanding the context of them. So
Yeah, no, and that's noted, and I think that's a conversation that, and that the board, and I have Terry here from the board as well, so that we'll be aware of. And
Hey, Shannon, I just
yes, ma'am.
clarify, I see a board meeting for Amherst on December 19th.
Yep, I know, yeah, we've got to get the 12-5. It's an extra meeting that we're adding, Tom, and discussed it at the meeting before last. We need to get it added and noticed.
So that is the 12th, and then you actually have an optional on the 12th as well. So I don't know if that helps.
On the 12th as well.
I will be out of town on the 12th.
Budget meeting.
Yeah, I think that's part of why we're shooting for the 5th. Okay, we'll work that detail out, but right now we're shooting for the 5th.
Will there be an evening meeting? Okay. Add it to my calendar.
Okay. Great.
You want to see the plan somehow?
No, I got it.
Okay, so is it option 1 then that we were wanting to start with, Matt and Brad?
yeah, that's the latest information or the most information for you to absorb. And also DEW hasn't seen it before, neither has Ty and Bond, so I think it's good for them both to be getting that while they're on the call. The rest is a little easier for them to interpret because it's an adaptation of the previous design. So essentially option 1, as y'all recall, is the charge is to disrupt as little of the existing building as possible and leverage the square footage that we do have as much as we can. And with the interior partitions mostly all being concrete masonry units, you'll hear me say CMU a lot. We really try to minimize the disruption. So really quickly, I'm bringing up this demolition plan diagram because I wanted to give y'all a sense of, what's the disruption to the existing building as part of the design I'm about to show you. This is the entrance right now to the building. This is the multi-purpose room, the administration wing, the library, and then all the typical classrooms. The dash lines are what we're anticipating demolition of. So there's quite a bit of effect on the front of the building where we try to get the administration moved up to the front here. So we have a secure entrance with an adjacent administration in in lockstep with the Department of Homeland Security recommendations for schools. There is disruption down here in this, I think it's a 1980s wing, where we're trying to turn this into your media center and put an addition on the back here, as we discussed in our last meeting, for the first grade classrooms. We're got some more disruption over here. We're going to be expanding the mechanical room for mechanical and electrical use, and putting in a new exterior corridor, as it were, a corridor that goes through this classroom in order to get us to a new creative arts music area, which would be backstage. And then more disruption over here to the art room, the existing art room, where we want to carry through this corridor and connect the existing building to the new addition on the east side of the building. This is really big picture. More detail is, significant disruption to the finishes of the building, taking down all the ceilings, ripping up floors where you guys decide you want to. We're assuming a complete replacement, but we do need clarification. Everything has to get painted. New finishes in the bathrooms where they're older finishes. These bathrooms are quite good. These need a lot of work. We're kind of scraping clean this front entrance area of the lobby because the bathrooms are unusable configuration essentially, and they could use a refresh anyway. Well, some of them, not all of them. Actually, some of them are quite nice, but so that's kind of the demolition. So
we're up on the screen, you guys. Thank you, Roger.
You guys okay for me to proceed?
Yeah, I'm sorry, Brad. Thank you. We were just getting you on the big screen for folks who weren't signed in on their laptops in the room. So my apologies.
Oh, great.
You're good.
Okay.
Yeah, carry on.
So this is big picture, looking at it from the 20,000 foot view, as it were. And looks like the scale of this is off. I apologize to Brad Mesquita. This says 1 to 20, but there's no way this is 1 to 20. But this is the design from 2021 for the site, and all we've done here is superimposed the new design over the existing site design that we had before, because we believe, as I spoke in our previous meetings, we still believe that the loop road concept for drop-off pickup, as well as the second exit and egress from the site, still make total sense. Having playground over on this side of the building still makes total sense, on the south side. So obviously this would all need adjustment for civil design based upon the new layout. I'll draw your attention to the wetland line, which is a little bit hard to see on this, but I superimposed it on here. This is the wetland setback. I think it's 100-foot setback. This new addition on this wing just misses it. Right now, we are about 6 feet into that setback on this portion of the building. I think I have high confidence that we could refine this design to avoid that if we have to in its entirety. So it's not a huge thing.
Does
Going
Brad
to
Lee, hey Brad? Brad Lee, do you see any concerns with this rendering with the loop road on the existing building, where obviously it's going through the existing building?
Yeah, we're gonna need
to look at the topography in that particular area out front there to see if we can just pull that loop road out and around. But again, we're more into the buffer the farther that direction we go. So it's going to be looking at the topography in that area.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, just eyeballing it looked pretty good, but obviously Brad Mesquita needs to sink his teeth into it.
Thank you.
So
I'm gonna move on to
We
the
have a
floor plan.
question, wait, 1 second, we have one question from Terry. Terry, go ahead.
How much of this is existing building? Is that what it points to?
This is all existing right here. This whole portion is what we have, so this is what we have now.
And we could just refresh this part.
Yep, this is an addition. This is
So, yeah,
existing. Then we go into.
So just to
back,
walk you through it,
Okay.
And then this is also an addition here. This is the existing MDR kitchen area.
Thank you, Brad.
guys, so for Brad Mesquita and Matt's and anybody else who's listening online, this is the first grade classroom edition here. Where my cursor is here, this is all the music edition. There's an addition, a small addition at the front of the building right here. And then, of course, the large addition in the back, which is 2 stories. 1-story gym, 2 stories of classrooms.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to orient myself. Because I haven't been in these meetings.
And I mean, it's hard to look at the floor plan.
So I think it's important to preface reviewing this floor plan by saying there are a lot of compromises to the educational program in this design. A lot of the classrooms are smaller than we would like them to be due to geometry. Some of the specialty spaces for special ed and individual instruction are variant from the educational program. Some of them spaces are bigger and some are slightly smaller. Just because we're working with an existing building, there's a lot of inefficiencies that come with doing that in terms of square footage, which is why even though several of the spaces end up being smaller than the program, the building is still 112,000 square feet in total, which is pretty comparable to actually the built to suit, which is at 119. So zooming in on this a little bit, anything you see in gray for gray walls is existing walls to
Oh,
remain.
hang on, we lost your screen. There it is. Okay. You're back. Thank you.
Sure.
Carry on.
So a gray wall is an existing wall to remain. A white wall is a new wall. This darker black line wall with a white backup, that's a new exterior wall. Doors with straight swings like this are existing doors to remain. They might get new hardware. That's another piece of the puzzle, is understanding the scope of how much hardware gets replaced in this building. And any door that has a curved swing is a new door. So looking at just walking you through this design from the entrance, basically we're making a new entrance to this building with administration directly off of the entrance vestibule, a right-sized, what I would consider to be a right-sized lobby for the population of this school, a little extra width in the corridor adjacent to the lobby, a decent marshalling area to get you in from the lobby into the multipurpose room. I think we'll probably add some additional doors here to the multipurpose room. This is a little pinched for the number of people you've got going in and out. All of the orange is educational support spaces, just like the orange on your program. We basically, let's see, we've got the media center down here, like we talked about before, with the tech ed for the media center right across the hall. First grade is all down here in the, well, not all of it, but 6 out of 7 classrooms are in a new addition, which we end up making a courtyard essentially by virtue of this new addition. Green spaces are special education, which we try to disperse throughout the building as much as was feasible with the existing geometry. what we found was that the challenge was really we only have so many large spaces in the existing building to work with, as classroom spaces, and therefore that kind of regulates special education spaces, which are cut up into smaller denominations, as it were, into other areas. Also, you've got classrooms that want to work in pods of 7. So getting those classrooms all together is important. This looks to be a little typo here, but so you've got first grade, second grade pod, third grade pod, fourth grade pod in the new addition, fifth grade pod up on the second floor of the addition. Going back to the front of the building, you have stars and my time along this wall. Creative or unified arts are basically in this area over here. Art is in the existing building. It is oversized because of just, again, it's geometry. You only need this much space for the corridor. We figured it better to give you the space in an instructional room than give it to the corridor. But we have options here. The mechanical electrical room stays where it is. To get to the music area, as well as the right-sized custodian maintenance area and building storage area, we go through this corridor here. We can also access it from the back of the stage and from the kitchen area. And this has a delivery door on this end, as well as an outdoor storage access, which also acts as an acoustic buffer between the music and the multi-purpose room, which is kind of nice. This green thing here is a ramp so that you can roll music equipment up the back of the stage and in a back door here. Essentially left the toilet rooms in place and left them alone where they are. A lot of these classrooms in the pods are kept intact. We can refresh them and fix up the finishes. But the configuration of the walls, masonry walls, is pretty much the same. We also have to fix some of the safety issues surrounding those walls. Get them running all the way up to the deck and close off the holes that shouldn't be there, things like that. We're able to do this and get the 2 pods in this wing because we put this 2 classroom addition on that we discussed at the last meeting. That gets us up to the needed number of 14 classrooms in this wing, plus a flex classroom. What it doesn't get us is additional space dispersed amongst that pod for special education. We would prefer to have SLP, case manager, reading specialist near these closer to these classrooms. Right now we have one case manager and SLP over here. Then we put the same thing, a second one here for these students. There's also more down here, but nothing in this wing itself.
Hey, Brad.
Well, yeah.
I have a question. You said that, and it's off track, but you said the build to suit was 119,000 square feet. On the percent, I have it just under 136.
No.
Under what?
19, but when you go to page 2, you have a square footage of 135,756. Is that wrong? Is it actually 15?
You're talking about option 2?
Sorry to get on that, but you said it was 119, and when I reviewed it, it was 136. But it actually says both options on the plan that you sent. So is it the 119 number or is it the 136?
It's the 119. There must have been a misprint.
That's fine. Thank you.
Yeah. It looks like the second floor of option 2 had the old figures on it.
Yes.
And didn't get updated. The page 1 of that option 2 is correct.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Brad.
Yep. So I am wrapping it up, I promise. So
You're great.
small group instruction. We were able to fit this in the pod. as well as we combined the workroom for second and third grade into this area. And then we put a second and third grade teacher storage over here, which is not ideal because it's outside of this space, but at least they've got something nearby. The fourth grade pod is in the new addition. Obviously, all these classrooms are per the program. We did split guidance and put guidance down, half of it at the front of the building and half of it back here with the rest of the students. And we put this second conference room back here as well. For Bradley and Matt, basically the concept here is we've got about 20 to 25 feet between the existing building and the new addition. The concept being to build this as part of phase one, and have a connection to the existing building here, while the school is operating. And then we can talk more about whether or not you want to also have which one of these other additions you also want to build as part of phase one. Obviously, the first grade pod has significant interface with the existing building, as does the music arts edition, and the third grade edition. Really quick, fourth grade pod, we have the gym at the end of the corridor. We've discussed before how on the site it really doesn't fit anywhere else but at the end. Unfortunately, we just need a long, thin building to fit on this site. The wetlands overlap we discussed before. I do have a flex classroom on this floor as well as the floor above. These toilet rooms are a little big, but we thought appropriately sized, being right next to the gym and this assembly space. On the upstairs, we could reduce the size of these toilet rooms. I think we just didn't have time to play with it anymore. So we need toilets upstairs. They probably could be, 5 feet shorter than they are now, but that would probably turn into space for the corridor more than anything else, without some rejiggering at this juncture. Upstairs, fifth grade, we've got 2 SLPs and reading intervention on the second floor, which I'm not crazy about. I would have rather them be on the first floor. Unfortunately, everything would like to be on the first floor, and we had to make some compromises. We do have our satellite nurse up here. So they are literally at opposite ends of the building. We have a couple of spaces which are unprogrammed, which I called flexible group instruction, over here, and individual instruction here. And these were essentially a consequence of the geometry. I think if I had more time to play with it, I might have been able to do better. Possibly moving the nurse and the staff toilet over into this flex instruction space and getting rid of this 500 square feet of stuff. We just ran out of time. So
And
we could play
Brad,
with that a little bit.
next to those individual instructions in those 2 fifth grade classrooms, is that the first floor roof that we see? You have
Sorry, can you
outlines
say it?
So by where your cursor is you have a dotted line that's there. Is that the first floor roof?
This crossed dashed line is
No,
the
that's
the second floor of the gym. This line here is the roof line of the floor below, as is this.
Okay, thank you.
So I mean, that's the big picture on option 1.
Right, questions, anyone want to start? Go
I
ahead,
have a
Greg.
question on the cost. You mentioned that this design has risk above what the other optional have because of the mechanical, the unknowns, and all that stuff. So my question is, when you cost that out, is that something you just increase the rate of all the things being done on this, or do you have a different line item that has risk set aside for mechanical concerns.
So I'm gonna let Matt chime in after I give you an initial answer. Essentially, we're gonna have a scope narrative that is in addition to these plans, and we'll give Matt the limited existing building plans that we have. And Matt, there's very little on this building on paper. And he's going to be doing pricing, conceptual pricing based on that material. He's going to build in a couple of contingencies for unknowns. And I'll let him speak to that a little bit. But
Yeah, so I think what we're gonna do, anything we can define, quantify, understand conceptually, we will put a line item within the body of the estimate. So if we know that boilers in the oldest part have to be replaced, but the new addition is a standalone, brand new rooftop, whatever, I don't know, right? So we can price the standalone rooftop brand new system on a lot of different metrics. But we know in the existing we have to replace the boilers. These are all hypothetical examples. What we would do in the estimate is understand the size of the boilers, understand what pieces and parts would be attached to those boilers that would also have to be new, like controls or some sort of a expansion tank, loop, widget, pump, whatever. We would put an allowance in there to deal with that. And then at the end, for the things that we can't see and the things that aren't noted, for pressure relief valves halfway through the building, at the bottom of our estimate, we will have very likely a design contingency and a construction manager's estimating contingency. Sometimes they're two line items, sometimes they're one line item. It doesn't really matter for this, but it is an attempt to capture some value of stuff that is just not defined. It's too early. So it's a percentage that we all talk about to feel if it feels right, if it sounds right, so your design professionals weigh in, the facility, buildings and grounds committee, will weigh in, administration will weigh in, and DEW will give our perspective, as well. And we come to an agreement of what that percentage should be based on best practices.
All right, thanks a lot. Yeah, I'd expect it to be higher on this plan than the next one we're gonna discuss. But thanks a lot for the answer.
Yes, you're welcome. And you're spot on, actually. So the more renovations you have, the higher the contingencies will be. If it is that's an excellent point. The new stuff, the new build, would have probably lower contingencies because those are things we can quantify and understand what we're getting into, because it's all new and we can see that in our head. Above your ceilings, there's just not enough time to go do a building scan of the sins that we will find when we when we remove a ceiling to do work and then have to put it back. So excellent point.
Hey, Matt, nothing we hold you to, but what's a ballpark number you're using right now for a renovation of an existing building? And then I have the same question for square foot number on a new build. You don't feel comfortable answering it, I understand, but do you have a number for us?
Negative. No way will I do that. I want to. That's an excellent Friday try. But we're going to quantify it. The costs have gone up, unfortunately, and it's while material prices have stabilized, labor prices have not. Subcontractors remain busy. So what I will say is that we just bid I think it's 16,000 square foot building for Bow Elementary School, and that has some renovations and an addition. So that information that is literally like 2 days old will help influence what we're looking at here, so that we can get some better numbers. And that school district came to DEW with a plan that was not as developed as what Brad is showing me here. And we set the bond value, I think the construction value was like 11.8. And we are still tracking because of contingencies and the things that we do early on to make sure the project's right. We're still tracking from a crayon sketch to we're getting ready to start construction and groundbreaking on Monday. We're still tracking.
Great, thank you.
And I will just reminder, I'm going to disappear in about 2 minutes. So
Thank you, Matt, for
thank you,
attending.
Yeah,
thank you.
thanks for being here, Matt.
Yeah, for
Yeah,
that reason, I
you're
wanted
welcome.
to squeeze in another question for Matt if we can.
Yeah. I was just sort of saying, like, when I
Yeah,
just all of a sudden
no.
disappear, I don't want to interrupt anybody. Yep. Go ahead, Brett.
Yeah, good time check. I appreciate it. It's so in terms of escalation and schedule, my presumption is that groundbreaking on a project like this is probably spring of 2025. If it passes a bond vote in 2024, what sort of are you comfortable telling the team what sort of inflationary escalations we're looking at year over year right now? What we're projecting? Do we know?
Yeah, I don't know if I put any numbers on 25 yet, but when we're now in 23 moving into 24, what I've been using is like 3 3/4 of a point. So 3.75% in our estimates to get, because when we set up our estimates, we're sort of looking at it as if it is today. So the numbers that we have for a 2x4 or a CMU, right? Concrete block. We're looking as if that cost is today's cost. And then at the bottom, we put a percentage of 3.75 on top of everything as an escalator to get us into 2024. So I have not studied much beyond that into 25. But my guess is it will remain lower and not higher, because there probably will be a softening of the market out in time.
So to be clear, you're saying about 3.75 year over year?
Yeah. So from 23 to 24, I'm using 3.75. Correct.
Wow. Okay.
As an escalator, right? So that's escalation. That's not a contingency for design
Right.
and all that sort of stuff, right? So that's
Yeah.
separate.
Yeah, just I've been hearing some higher numbers from some other estimators, so it's interesting to hear
Well, that's
what everybody's experiencing.
Well, what I'm looking at are sort of, and I know it's not the way construction inflation works, but we use RS means and that information, CPI, right? That's what people can kind of understand, because if you get people in the community that start to see, why is there a 7%, 7.5%, whatever the number is that may be higher, right? But CPI is only 2.95. Like, what are you guys doing? Like, what is this? It just seems so fat. Everything's wrong, right? So we don't try to confuse the public with construction inflation versus sort of inflation, right? So we just pick something that everybody can understand. It's a household kind of concept, right? And it's just sort of understandable. Anything in addition to that would be handled in like that estimate contingency, right? So again, you don't want to have a conservative estimate contingency, a conservative design contingency, a conservative escalation contingency. Then all of a sudden, the numbers get out of control. So we, the committee and DEW, have to pass the straight face test, and that's my job.
Well, that's
Thank you,
good.
Matt.
One good thing is we were at 5% escalation on the last project, so that is definitely dropping down as far as what we had for an estimate.
Right. And for a while, 21, 22, 20, and into from 22 to 23, I was 7, 8, even pushing for 10% on some projects if it was wood. It just, you couldn't control it. It was just all over the place.
Great. Any other questions for Matt? See what about that?
Kathleen, any feedback?
on the design?
Nothing for Matt. Okay, we're gonna move to some design feedback then. Matt, thank you again. When you disappear, we understand and appreciate your time.
Okay, thank you. Bye, everybody.
Bye,
Thanks,
Matt.
Matt.
Thanks, Matt.
I
If
have
I
a
could-
question.
if
Oh,
I
yeah,
could-
go ahead.
I'd like to ask the committee to consider their questions starting with anything related to site and civil if possible, because I know Bradley has limited time.
Okay, I have one, but if someone else has something that.
He already answered mine, so.
Okay, great. I'm not really quite sure. This is probably a question that doesn't have an answer, or I know the answer to. I understand why we put the gym at the back. My concern is if when we're utilizing the gym after hours, access for the public to the gym. So on that loop road around, can we park on that? Like, how would that work? Because I know we don't want to put another parking lot in the back, right? So are there any?
So I'm gonna chime in on this because I've been staring at it and I was thinking about the same thing as I was laying it out. So Brad, I'm sorry to jump in front of you there, but
Go ahead.
and he could stop me if I say something stupid, which happens all the time, but he's comfortable with that. But the way he laid this out, you've got more than one lane here. I think there's two, right, Brad?
Correct.
Which
We're using
means
double
that-
stacking for queuing. Yep.
Right. So instead of for drop off pickup, the second lane could be used for parallel parking.
Okay, that was my question, and I was hoping that.
You can't put a parking lot in because of cost or wetlands, because having a parking lot behind for community use would be very good.
But then we don't have a field. There's no
Yeah.
big field for play. There's no.
So we lose, but that's.
But you can't play soccer, you can't take a PE class outdoors and have a big field unless you go up.
Yeah, so we definitely could go up. I think you might need some small parking area back there. If all we're relying on is parallel parking. And that's where community rec is gonna occur, like even a small parking area, I don't know if it would fit like along the side. They're not in the back. Like
Yeah, so
where
it's
would
not enough
it, like,
park. You're thinking community rec would use this, right? Yeah.
Well, we do, there was a rec commission meeting this week and I specifically asked the commission and the director of the recreation department, this question about a gym at a new school, and they were like, absolutely, yes, we need extra gym space in this town and we would use it, no doubt.
So, and I don't know, so you can't do parking in the field. I agree with you, you need field, we need green space.
Yeah.
But for community use and entrance back there would be perfect, obviously. I don't know how much space, I don't have.
It does look like there's an opportunity for like,
No, I'm serious.
it could, it's just what gets closed off, right? So like right now,
In the winter, right, basketball in the winter.
Yeah, they just walk around.
they could walk
I
around.
don't wanna walk through. No, walk through.
Yeah.
Right around the nice lit.
Yeah.
Clean plowed road that they're paying for.
Yeah,
I would say as much grass as you can.
it does look like you have an opportunity at that top part of the gym though, by the loop road for just some parking coming in off of the loop road, maybe giving us 20-25 spaces. Just as you look at it, Brad, can you just see what you can do in that area as options for us?
You're looking at head-end spaces?
It's also like grandmothers.
Yeah.
Only be good, something like that.
Yeah.
I don't think it needs to be a full-size parking lot.
But
Just
it's
something
like
that can be
winter
closed.
sports, it's tough for people who have a challenge,
Right.
but some sort of small.
Grammys come and watch their.
This is a school, this is not a rec center, so.
But it's gonna be rec in the weekends.
It's multi-use. If you're gonna build anything and you're serving the community, as many purposes as you can get into it is one less thing you have to build elsewhere. And so it's actually an economy of scale to say, we're gonna use it for multiple things. That has to be part of our
Well,
plan.
I think even during school use,
Wait,
so if we're having an all-school like assembly or something in the back, that families are invited to have
I
some
think-
type of
I
access
think
is
it would be
important.
helpful, like that makes sense to me, something there along.
Yeah, I don't
with
wanna get rid of the field.
a handful of parking spots, 20 people, don't cut the fields, keep the back fields open. I think what would be helpful on this map is also to mark out where the play spaces are, so like,
Yeah.
I envision we want a place like. This, are we looking to target first and second grade play space like in here, over here? now we're along a road.
Hey Brad, is there any way that you can highlight where your intention for play spaces are, so that Kathleen can kind of see them just on the plan here?
Yep. And I guess,
She also liked that kind of courtyard that you
Yeah.
created, that, as a play space as well, next to the existing building and your new addition.
That's a snow overflow, I remember.
yes,
It's still are allowed to play in there, we have something, you know,
yeah,
and then here's.
and then there's.
So
Yeah, all
generally
those
speaking, we
spaces.
like to put a hard play space next to the gym so they could use it as a ball wall. And soft play space. You know, we talked about an outdoor classroom type thing like you have now over in this wetland area. A soft play space in this area. We thought that play space inside the courtyard might be too disruptive. This is pushing the boundaries right now, of being disruptive to the classrooms. But we got to put them somewhere.
So
So,
then that would all be, like, that whole road would be fenced in. Right, so
what do you mean whole road?
so this road here, if you're putting 2 playgrounds in this space, you would need this to all be fenced in.
It'd be curved.
So you couldn't put a playground with young children without this.
A ball.
I think they would have fencing there, but I would say that we're going to fence in just the playground areas, we wouldn't fence in the entire road.
Yeah,
Do fifth graders have their own spot or fourth, fifth graders?
so right now we're just used to more of an open play space, so if you're fencing in the playground area, we're saying, okay, all the kids are in this playground spot. Not accessing blacktop over here, right?
Well, I mean, there'll be gates as well to access that we need to get travel back and forth.
Do the fifth graders have their own play area? Fourth, fifth graders, or is it being shared with first graders?
So it would be shared, and but you're looking at the backspace like that, like you could have 4th and 5th graders, they may not need access to. But all the kids, like you want all kids to have access to the structure and like those great opportunities for structured swing outside play.
They would also have different
I know
times.
the
so
fifth
it's not-
grade, point I've heard from the fifth graders this year is a lot of play. Play like that.
Well, that's every year. You hear that every year from me. That's what.
Yeah.
So I mean, you gotta,
It's not.
we have no improvement here, I'd like to talk about that. Good, good, other stuff too.
No, definitely an improvement, we want them to have access to all of those structures, it's developmentally appropriate to be able to play. So just thinking like, yeah, you would have to have those playground spaces. Fenced in somehow, if it's not a fence along the whole thing, then we'd have to define the size of the space, the gates that would get kids in and out. And classrooms in and out.
I think fencing on that side of the road, the other side doesn't need it, but that side obviously would.
Is that paid for the same bond, all fencing and playground? What we bond?
Yeah, just
Yeah, yeah.
depends on who knows carry the expense, whether it's owner or construction manager. But yes, to answer your.
Okay, got it, thanks.
I'm not picking up all of the conversation, but, basically what I was drawing here was, you know, maybe you fence all along this road and then, you know, you have interruptions for
Yeah.
sidewalks, right, from the building.
Yeah.
But that will protect the kids.
They come out that door and go down that side.
Right here, is the door here?
Yeah.
There's doors here,
Okay.
there's doors
Yeah.
here, there's doors here.
It's a hard line on this drawing, but
Oh, this.
it's not a door on the drawing, yeah.
Well, there will.
Right, we're just talking about doors to access the playground. I'm sure it's hard to pick up all the audio. Can I ask a
Right.
question about that little small courtyard? That's up near the mechanical and electrical. An IT admin. In the front, yeah, right there, that's the one. So is that like a geometry of the building thing, or I think I'm just still concerned about those small courtyards and snow removal and and how we're actually, how that functions. So
It's a real concern. These are sloped roofs here and here and here, and they're dumping into this courtyard. And there's, we're cursed by geometry a little bit here. To get to this addition, we need some sort of public access. And our two choices are either what I've drawn here or a connector that goes this way, which means that students, it's just extra steps for the little ones trying to get from the second floor over here to a music room and having to walk the extra steps to go through this way. But we could do it. We could go this way, and have the connector here. It's a choice.
does it have, this may be a really stupid question, so forgive me in advance. But does that piece of the building have to, that's the music room, have to connect? It does, right?
He's just
It
giving them
does,
a path
I
of
see.
walking through the NPR,
right.
because I don't think you can access through the NPR. 'Cause our
That's my question is, do we need all of that? But it sounds like we do. There's not another way to get in. Okay.
No, there's not unless we start cutting up the stage.
Yeah, no, that's why I said it's probably a dumb question.
I do personally like your connector the other way, not creating that courtyard, but that's my preference, Brad.
Make it on one side.
Yeah, well, because then you have clear access coming in here, it's clearly accessed, you have a hallway that's leading to your music areas, and we're not creating. I just get nervous.
I do too. I heard a lot of feedback on the courtyard concept over the years.
And not much of it is positive.
And not much of it's positive. And so when I see that, that's exactly,
That's so tiny.
and it's legitimate, the concerns are legitimate. So I would favor what Roger is suggesting.
So we currently are teaching music on the stage and all the kids are going that way to get there. So I don't see an issue with us extending that path, like extending that hallway, kids going down towards that space, and heading towards music.
Yeah.
I don't think you would need the courtyard there if we could adjust that.
I'm sorry, what was the adjusted suggestion?
That little stretch.
Yeah, so it sounds like there's consensus that we would prefer the other option
That one.
on the courtyard, on eliminating the courtyard and curving the hallway, like what you're, yeah.
And then Brad, does that gain you any room on that interior? Would you still need that other hallway? Does that just become an egress door? No, the other one down below. That
This
one.
can go away.
Perfect.
Nice.
Next.
Are we looking for general feedback on this plan?
If anything
Yeah.
stands out to you, we're like, hey, this is.
Okay. Yeah, so my feedback is, it feels like we've hit some of the targets with putting grade levels together.
Yeah.
And that feels good. The lack of the third floor is a huge improvement from when we looked at it last time. I feel like we're using some of our space in a good way. I don't see any giant glaring concerns. The only thing I'd be worried about is the size of those second grade classrooms are smaller than the other classrooms that are, being proposed on the new piece, which we had a target of about 900, and you've got some in there around 830, 786, right? But we would figure out where that lands, and I guess I would need to know from the refinishing perspective, like, if those classrooms would get targeted for very nice storage for students, because you're not going to be able to add to the hallway, I'm assuming, like those cubbies we
It's a great point.
discussed.
So and Brad, you can talk to
Yeah.
I think with this design, your cubbies are in the classrooms.
Yeah, those small.
They have to
hallways.
be, because that's too
They're
narrow.
small hallways.
So, like, when we're thinking, and that's, I know, next level, but I don't wanna be short-sighted on the refinishing. Of course, we wanna use the most cost-effective approach, but those classrooms, if they're getting the refresh, they would need quality refinish inside cubbies for students, because right now you're just talking random hooks on walls in most spaces, and we're giving those teachers the smallest classrooms and no hallway storage.
And we just wanna pick that up with the scope narrative that DEW
Yeah.
is pricing, saying these classrooms are going to carry cubbies within them.
Yep,
So to be clear, though, the classrooms in the addition, the 4th and 5th grade, the plan there is hallway storage.
That's a question for Brad as far as what he's proposing. Kathleen requested that, but just making sure.
Yeah, no, that's why I'm asking. It's a
And-
point of I'm clarifying.
It's a question for Brad.
it's
Yeah.
4th and 5th grade, Brad, and also that new 1st grade bump out. It seems like the hallways looked wider, so my assumption was that was everywhere except the existing middle hallway.
I'm sorry, it appears as though the existing hallways are narrower than the new ones. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
That is
So the
true.
new
The-
ones
The
can
new,
have cubbies.
the new ones are about 10 feet.
So the new
The-
construction, the new addition would have cubbies in the hallway, the old construction refurbished with cubbies in the classrooms, is that a true statement?
Yes, the cubbies would need to be in the classrooms and in any existing hallway.
Thank you.
So we need a full cubby system.
I'm assuming that for the purposes, since we're talking cubbies,
This is good.
we will go with a furniture product for the cubbies in the classrooms like we had for our 2021 estimate. In the hallways, we will go with a more robust custom millwork cubby that can hold up a little bit better to the traffic that travels down the hallways.
We're looking for millwork, not lockers.
No lockers, we don't need lockers.
Right.
I do not need lockers in my life. We can say that, but no.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then as far as the finishes too, that's where we work with DEW on that, because one thing that Brad said is, like, we're keeping a lot of the exterior doors, which instantly is concerning to me, but it's going through that scope. Because there's a lot of compromises on this.
My assumption
the
is
doors
that we're
jumped out to
keeping
me
all the
too.
doors. We're keeping all the doors, but we're replacing all the hardware.
Yeah, and you've got like our multi-purpose room, we'll have to look at that, like those doors are probably not on the list for keep. They're probably on the list for replace more than just fixed hardware for safety purposes.
And we really need to go through the scope. 'cause I
Yeah.
think, yeah, it's just, it's diving into the scope, like making sure what we're comfortable with. Any other feedback, Kathleen?
No, I feel like, you know, it is, looks pretty good, like from an educational standpoint, it's hit a lot of our targets. I don't know, like, you know, what does this look like? And that'll be the next steps too. Like, is this more phasing? Is this take another year? Are we putting kids in more portables or spreading kids across the district? Like, what's that impact, I guess, is my next, in opposition to the other plan, but I think this looks pretty good.
Steve, what do you think?
Yeah, I like the grouping of the classes a lot. I'm obviously glad we got the 3rd floor out of it.
Yeah. Awesome. Awesome.
Anyone else?
Of all the plans I've seen last couple of years, this is the least popular, it's not extra toilets. I'm not shit to face, the gym I don't love, but like, this one I think has what we need, I like the feedback. I like it about this is a good improvement, I like what it's down, so I would bias, but this will be a better look.
Awesome, great. Well, thank you for your work on that. You really took all the notes from the committee and made it work with the footprint that you have. And again, thank you again for getting that 3rd floor down. That was big, so.
Well, I think, you know, I think it was a good team realization that we could put this other addition down by where the new media center is going to go. That's really what made it a success. So this is good. I will make these small adjustments and get this back to you. Is the committee okay with going for a variance with zoning if we need to for this small amount of wetland? Because it would be better if we didn't have to rotate this, but I'll do whatever the committee wants.
Have you briefed me on that?
Yeah, we will. We haven't yet,
Okay.
because we haven't
Right.
decided.
Brad, if we're looking for
Yeah.
6 feet, I'd like you to try to get the 6 feet for us, rather than us having to try to go for a variance right off of the start of the project.
Did you hear Roger, Brad?
Is the variance
Stay
only
out-
for that 1 6
Stay
feet?
outside the
Or
buffer.
Do you also need a variance for the front of the building because you're doing something to it, you're touching it, or are you okay without a variance for the front of the building?
Because it's already
No,
there,
we,
right?
our new addition is outside the buffer zone.
Right,
This
that's
is all
what it is.
existing.
You don't need a variance for what you're improving in the front. Is that what you're saying?
It's within the zone.
It's within the zoning. I thought it's not, right here, it's cutting in.
But that's already there.
But it's existing.
But you sometimes cut the building to get variance.
Yeah, so the question is, if we're touching the building, are we still grandfathered in?
Right.
Because we're now touching the structure. Will
Well,
we need a variance?
it's
on the front
my
portion.
understanding that you're grandfathered. Brad, would you agree?
Okay.
I would agree with that.
Okay,
Okay,
perfect.
Thank you, that's helpful.
Great,
6 feet not an actual.
awesome.
Okay.
Thank you, Brad.
Roger, could you do me a favor and send me a brief bullet points on the discussion regarding the doors, because the existing doors, I didn't pick all that up and we need to move on. But I just need some direction on what scope you want there.
Yes.
Okay, thanks,
We
man.
all set with civil, so I can jump off?
Do you want to see the option 2? I mean, it's pretty
I've
straight.
reviewed it myself. I mean, I have your
Okay.
email.
Okay,
I would say we're good with Bradley. Thank you, Bradley.
Right, thanks, guys.
Thank you.
see you, Bradley. Okay, option 2 really shouldn't have surprises for you. We'll start where I did before, which is, this is the plopping it on the site plan.
Can I pause you real quick, just for the,
Sure.
for everyone else in the room? So after our meeting last week, the, where we discussed sort of reducing some of the square footage in the rooms to match the original program and where we might have some space, the leadership team at the SAU spent time working through that and sent Brad and his team all of those reduced square footages. So that's how Brad got to this design today with feedback.
Could we all be CC'd on the email in the future?
Yeah, I can forward it out to you to see, so you can see what was sent. Yeah. So just to give you guys that background, that's kind of where we were working from, the things that we discussed in the meeting last week. Thank you, Brad. Sorry about that.
Yeah, actually, now that you gave me a moment to pause and remember on option 1, I'm assuming that the committee would like me to get this 500 square feet out of here, and put the nurse back in this area, for the satellite nurse, and reduce the size. So this is basically what we call a single loaded corridor. So there will be windows on this side looking out over onto this roof. You good with that?
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
Yeah,
We
okay.
can
Yeah.
take another 500 square feet, go for it.
Well, and
It's
again,
gonna
it
take-
goes to that, our goal is to be able to explain and justify every space that we're putting in. And so if there's a corridor that's like, well, this is just stuff, that's not
Yeah.
gonna fly, right? So if we can eliminate
Right.
that, yeah, thank you.
Yeah, we can. So big picture, this fits on the site. It's a smaller building. We've made some adjustments to the library, the shape of the building for the library. We kind of sucked everything in, where we made the gym smaller and some of these spaces smaller. We pushed this facade, the southern facade, north, as much as was feasible. Since this is, we want to leverage this for play space as much as we can. So that's kind of the gist of that. Any questions on the site? Okay. So floor plans changes from the last floor plan are adjustments to the square footage that we discussed, and that you guys sent over for the new program. Always there could be further improvements and refinements. This is not a perfect plan, but there's a lot here that's responsive to your new direction. We just found that this was a really nice circulation space for the gym, and we wanted to leverage that for in and out of the media center and make the media center more visible from the central lobby. It does take away some of its visibility from the front, but we thought that was a good trade-off as operationally it just works a little bit better. The administration area, we split the guidance again, like we did on option 1. So 2 of the guidance rooms are further down this way. We have both conference rooms in the administration wing right now. All of these functions are in the same place. They're just reduced sizes. We did a slight reconfiguration on the back of the gym. The gym obviously is smaller. This overrun here, I believe from the court, this is the best high school size basketball court. So same size court as you saw before, with, I think it's a 6-foot overrun from the court line to the wall. So you can
And
still get
just-
with,
Just for a second, as how we got there is that we measured our existing gym spaces to make sure what gym we had in this building was appropriate. So just to go through it. The high school gym is 7,394 square feet with 1,537 square feet of bleachers for a total of 8,931 square feet. Our middle school gym, the court itself is 5,933 and the bleachers carry 2,073 for a total of 8,006. So we provided a court space of 6,300. And then we also have our bleachers for 900 and some change, which I think it's important to know of. What was that out of bounds space again, Brad, for a high school size gym, a high school size court?
6 feet.
it's a little over 6 feet overrun from the court to the wall.
And that's if we select a high school size court to go within the building.
I just call it an appropriate size court.
So I felt that was appropriate out of bounds for if we went with the maximum size gym.
Perfect. Are we getting 2 hoops in here? Are we getting like 8 hoops? Like, are we putting sideways for it? We play super little ones? Like,
We haven't really got into those details yet, but typically we would do the main court and then we would carry 4
Like
other
the
hoops
full
as well, yes. And a curtain in the middle to separate the gym to run 2 different classes. Again, more into the details, but that is the
What
point.
are those nice walls in the middle?
You want-
Not just a curtain, because we are going to be running 2 PE classes likely at the same time,
Yeah.
or we're going back to a
Softball,
PE class.
strength, walls.
So again, it's getting into the details
So
of,
you gotta make sure you have the storage of the wall. The wall actually those walls take up space in the sideline.
they do,
And if you're playing a game, the wall has to be a certain distance away
and it does, and
from the.
I mean, to get into it, the construction installation of a wall compared to the
The
curtains.
curtains can go up. There's one, like one we had in Hop was up.
Our high school has a really nice curtain. They use it.
Yeah, and it was,
Simultaneous classes.
yes,
On both sides.
yeah.
And
the curtains flip.
For rec runs 2, during the weekend, rec runs 2 games at the same
You
time.
push a button, it goes up.
I just want to make sure that we're thinking about that, because
I don't know if
that's
they-
ultimately the function is going to be likely 2 classes receiving instruction and physical education at the same
Yeah,
time.
I think you just,
Some days there may not.
Are you using cafeteria all?
I think you keep it off and down.
So would we use the multi-purpose room?
Yeah, right.
Yeah, so we definitely could. I would envision you're still, any sort of a grade level is trying to come together, like they would use that shared space in the multi-purpose room. Right now, they don't really have that opportunity. So it would be for things like that. We are running 2 hours of lunch in the multi-purpose room a day too. So there's that component, and then any assembly. Right now, we displace Brendan and Robert anytime we have full school assembly.
So, is the upshot that the curtain is okay?
Yeah, that's fine. I'll be fine with it.
Okay.
Yeah, you will.
Yeah.
We need your feedback.
Yeah, this is good. Yeah.
Okay, so then basically what we'll do is with the curtain, we could just have the curtain be from here to here, and then they can walk around the curtain. It doesn't have to interrupt the bleachers, which makes the bleachers more affordable. So
Do the bleachers stay down or do they come up and down?
Pull out, yeah.
They fold out, okay.
They're on the wall, and pull down.
That's what I said, okay.
So this area here, we were talking about the lobby to the gym. Custodians, building storage space is the same amount of space. We've got better toilets near the front of the building and administration and so forth in this option, you know, larger toilets, which is nice.
Toilets are gonna be in the public part of the school too, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
There's a toilet in the gym as
It's
well.
small,
Yeah,
I want like.
No, those would be the multiple gang toilets.
Yeah.
Especially being off of the cap right there and everything as well.
Mhm.
But they close the cap off when we have public people, right?
Yeah, but the toilets will still be.
We're good, Brad.
so this option tries to keep the same philosophy as the prior one you saw, which is this is phase one. 20+ feet away from the existing building line is here. Nurse is still at this juncture point between the instructional side of the building for general instruction and the creative arts and some of the special ed needs. We still have the disbursement of the special ed needs throughout the instructional wing. We've downsized, or I should say right-sized these spaces. They hover anywhere between 908 and 915, with some very small exceptions. Upstairs, sometimes you see on some of these plans, you'll see a white out space here. Basically what I do is I put in a separator so that the square footage doesn't count space that I don't think is very useful to the classroom. This is not the best example of that issue, but if you go downstairs, for instance, in the STARS education, there's sort of a circulation space to get to these offices. That doesn't really contribute to the STARS education instructional space. And so I sort of separated that out. That's why that's a white space, just an FYI.
Hey, Brad, I
Yes.
guess the one thing that stands out to me is, are we able to move the elevator closer to the main entrance? I just,
No.
no.
The short
What do you
answer is
mean?
no. So if you, the trouble is that we're building this phase one, and by state code, you need this to be handicap accessible. So on a previous school, we went to the state asking for a variance for the elevator not to be installed as part of phase one, and we got it thrown back at us with a no. You
Okay.
could fly in the face of the state regulators and do it anyway. That's your option. But then we don't have success in getting a variance to do so.
I gotcha. No, that makes sense then going off that way.
The rest of these spaces are following that same narrative. So reduced size spaces. The only thing I would note is that we have I was looking through the program, doing a double check, and I have 2 of these My Time offices. You guys have only asked for 1 on the second floor. So the one that's downstairs is essentially an extra, which I know is not great. We can move these around so that, as we refine the design further, put this office on the outside wall so that it could be used for either My Time or some other use with access from the corridor. That's a really minor refinement. But I just, cards on the table, that's a deviation from the program. But everything else is pretty much in line. with what was asked for. This computer lab upstairs also is, what we could also do is, well, no, this is undersized, which I don't love. I don't have an easy solution to that, which is why you got it this way.
So I don't think it's a bad thing to have that smaller space upstairs in the My Time area. And while it's labeled an office right now, just having that smaller space on the second floor versus always needing to move a student to the first floor if they need a smaller, quieter, calmer environment. I think that's good there. I know that was something I looked at with the team. I think for us, the computer lab, when we're talking third, fourth, fifth graders, like that layout there, might be better off labeled as like STEM lab versus, because the other one was more connected with the media center. So I know we talked about that in our follow-up meeting too.
Brad, can you just change the name of that to STEM lab for
Which
the
then
second
makes
floor?
me not worried about the square footage, because you're using, it's okay if it's a smaller space, if you're not setting up the like traditional rows of computers. Like you would in the one off the media center.
As you're saying, computers are gonna go down on the first floor.
Yes, and then be connected to,
Okay,
So this,
so they can just walk to the
stays
computer lab
computer
if they
lab?
need to.
That one
yeah,
stays computer lab?
that one stays computer lab.
Yeah,
Okay,
just the second floor, Brad.
The other one can be is.
so the second floor size is okay, just rename it STEM lab.
Engineering.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, I like that, and that's more, for that age group, it's more appropriate anyway.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, I agree, and more flexible, and
Yep.
so the small size wouldn't kill you.
Right,
Do we label that something different? Do we still call that My Time office for the second floor?
I think you can still call it that. But yeah, just knowing that space would be a non-traditional type computer lab, which is why we made it smaller when we met. So if we want to call it something different.
Yeah, I'm picking up your.
Yep.
so where are the teacher collaboration spaces per grade level?
That teacher's
Or-
rooms?
Collaboration spaces with small group instruction for the students, or teacher break areas?
I guess both, so here where it says teachers, that's meant for them to be able to,
Eat lunch.
Sorry, I'm
And
having
these,
trouble
I
hearing
think-
you.
We worked together both on contract. What's that?
The workroom spaces, Terry,
okay,
are like small grade level workroom spaces. And then your teachers' rooms would be outfitted with like the coffee maker, the fridge, those spaces, and also an opportunity for like a table to still collaborate. And
okay,
I think we moved, didn't we cut a workroom space to add more student bathrooms on the second floor?
So this is second floor here,
Yeah,
we
so
have,
we switched that way.
can you go to the other side of the second floor, Brad?
Like, I think this might have been another workroom. We were
That
thinking-
one's staff toilet and then it says individual instruction.
Yeah, so I think these should be relabeled as just student bathrooms, because we talked about how having only one set of bathrooms in the hallway was gonna be a lot for 3 grade levels, but if we went and just turned these into single stall restrooms, like there, you would have one for the 5th grade area and one for the 3rd grade area, and I think the single stall restrooms are also a great option for kids.
So just, this is staff, you wanna change that to just a single stall student?
Yep,
And then this one here too?
yep,
And you're fine with locations on both ends? Which
yeah,
one
that
is
would be fine,
And staff can use the one of
in the hallway area closer to the,
Cause then there's staff here too, we have another staff. that was
Yeah.
here.
yep,
them.
there's plenty.
Brad, did you catch all that? I know there's a lot of talking and we're in a big room.
So the 3rd grade staff toilet for 60 square feet would just change to individual student rather than staff. Yep, that one.
Just toilet.
Do you want to call it just toilet? Because it would be shared use. And then the same with the 61 square feet down by 5th grade and next to the individual instruction. And then I almost would call it just toilet, Brad, rather than student, because it looks like it'd be a shared use.
right?
And what,
Yeah.
so this individual instruction label is code for it's not in the program. So it's essentially extra space. You know, and I put the word extra in quotes because, you know, any design needs some flexibility built into it. So, but this is outside the program. If you wanted this to be a toilet room, it could do that too.
I do like how there's a toilet here for this grade level, just personally, and then there's one here for there, because then you're not, I don't know.
I don't think you're ever gonna regret having another bathroom there.
No,
Like,
you
if you
never.
think about the number of students, like, so you're 5 classes, 20 kids there, you've got over 100 students trying to use the restroom, they're more than likely are going to need to go at the same time. So if you,
That's fair.
No,
yeah, if you put,
That's a
if
great
you
point
put a
there.
second one there, I think that would be.
yeah, there's just an interesting, I
Yep.
don't know, situation at fifth grade recently. So,
I-
yeah.
Have that good with.
Mhm. Yeah,
Did
mine-
you have a big conversation with the school, fifth grade boys plugging out the whole toilet? The whole bathroom, I mean? Last year? Yeah. Yeah, so you gotta, but don't bring that up. Don't make it-
Well, I think it's one staff, I dedicate not that staff, when she did that.
Last year, major flooding.
Oh, no, I-
You can just do it also, you can put on, you know, the heights thing, the interior design heights thing for fifth, third grade.
For
Girls
fourth and
and-
fifth grade, I think it is,
It's a
right?
good tradition.
And a full adult, okay.
Yeah,
This is
So-
improved a lot. I like it better.
it is better, right? Yeah.
So I'm sorry,
Like the
but
really little ones that need a short.
I'm just
one,
trying
like
to,
Okay,
for the big summary on the toilet rooms is you want these 3 to be toilet rooms, just labeled toilet, period, correct?
Correct.
Thank you.
This shorter than last time, the diagonal line, is it shorter than it was last time?
Yeah, we had square footage
Good.
off of it, out of every
Good,
classroom.
okay, I like it.
Yeah.
Thanks.
So, just to do a time check, I'm leading an 11 o'clock meeting, so I have a hard stop at 11.
Yep.
I'd be grateful if we could stop 5 minutes before. That's in 10 minutes. Are there any other topics that I'm neglecting that we should be discussing?
Let me just go around the room real quick and we'll give everybody a chance to round robin if they want. So I'll start with you, Greg.
I have nothing, this has been a good improvement, I just wanna make sure that when we're having these board meetings, you know, the board gets 2 hours, I get 2 minutes. So if we could have simple breakdown of costs to make it comparable to both option 1 and 2, as well as compared to what we currently have. That's it, thanks.
Awesome. Great. Roger, anything else for Brad?
No,
I'm
actually good, Brad, thank you for pulling this together quickly, because last time we talked, we weren't gonna have this one, so I appreciate that. Thanks for pushing.
You're welcome. I'm glad we could do it.
Yeah, I don't have anything, Brad. I appreciate you working so hard on a quick timeline. I think both options are really viable for us, and I'm curious to see how it shakes out with cost.
Christine?
I'm good, thank you.
Yeah, so I'm just gonna echo what everyone else said, and I also want to thank Kathleen and Steve and Roger, and Mike's not here, and Amy. I know everyone took a big chunk of time last week to get us to this number. I'm really happy to see the 119. That's a much more palatable number. I think, you know, to kind of point to what Greg said earlier, this feels really realistic of like, okay, this is, you know, we can describe the programming that's going to take place, but there aren't a lot of extras, which we've heard pretty clearly from the community that we're not interested in extras. I appreciate Roger's work on the gym. So I'm really happy with all of this. Thank you, Brad, for the push. Because I know it was aggressive and we appreciate it.
It's our pleasure.
I
I'm glad we
think-
can make it happen.
Yeah. So that being said, next steps.
Next steps, I'm going to make these small revisions to the plans. I'm going to put together a scope narrative of option 1. Essentially, option 2 is done, except for mechanical, electrical, plumbing. Yeton is going to be putting together whatever, you know, you guys gave them some direction on scoping for option 2, which I would assume would deviate from the previous design. And then the option one, which is the heavy lift for them, working with the existing building and systems. And we are going to get that over to DEW by end of day on the 1st, and we, of course, will copy you guys on that. There will be some assumptions on our part in regards to what we're doing to this existing building, but our assumption, my assumption walking into that is that you want finishes parity with the new building in the renovated building. So if a good example of that might be if every classroom is getting 12 feet of millwork in the new building in option 2, that you want to be putting countertops and wall cabinets of the same quantity in the option 1 existing classrooms.
I think it's a little different, right? Because in option 1, which is the reno, we only have the millwork happening in that 2nd grade corridor, right? Like in terms of like the cubby millwork. No, I'm sorry. Let me
No,
back that up. That's
yeah.
furniture. That's furniture cubbies. We're talking millwork in the hallways for those new additions, not the.
And there's some teacher stuff.
Yeah.
I would-
Millwork is a code word for
Okay.
basically anything that they like cabinet work. So that would include classroom countertops and wall cabinets for storage, wardrobes for teacher storage, things like that.
My thought, Brad, is just on those existing classrooms, we would definitely want them inside of the spaces, but I'd use caution as to how much. I mean, because if we have a 915 square foot classroom compared to a 786, I don't think we would throw the same amount of millwork inside of it. But that's just my thought. It definitely gets millwork, just
Yes.
maybe reduced a little.
Storage is already a challenge, right? So I think you would need to say, like, I think it would be helpful to see what is a new classroom getting in this plan? Is it getting 4 storage shelves, right? And then would we say that because the room is 100 square feet less, that maybe we would say they would get 3?
Excuse me, I have to step away from.
Yeah. You're gonna need something that's similar in the refresh rooms to the new rooms, but proportional. Yes.
Exactly.
It might not be exactly the
But
same,
it may be, because you don't necessarily do 900 square feet full length,
no.
Right.
so it might be equal. but
It could be, and it might be just a little bit different layout depending on how we can fit it into the room.
You're gonna put their.
Yeah.
Just for in perspective, it should be about the same amount of cost when you're doing a new cubby versus a new hallway. Not locker versus an interior, not locker,
That's what he's asking.
right? Okay.
Yeah,
We shouldn't expect to see a huge differential.
it's a good question. We put them in.
I mean, I would imagine you gotta find
Well, cause he was.
a modular system.
Yes, cause I think the inside one in the reno before, but I was saying it would be like a furniture
Right.
piece. And this would be the ones in the hallway with custom.
You mentioned it.
How much replacement
Yeah,
cost
that's
do
what I
you
was
put into those? Are these like damaged by snow every year? Or what do you,
As far as what,
the cubby, not lockers?
we would just have a furniture replacement plan to pick up all of these items, similar to what Souhegan's doing.
Okay, it's not.
It's been all in, that's probably the new one.
So-
In the hallway.
I'm gonna be calling Roger in the coming week, coming few days, I should say, to pick his brain because there's gonna be some judgment calls in order to get this scope narrative put together so quickly. So Roger, I'll reach out to you about the casework so we can refine it a little bit. I hope.
And
you're okay.
I'll work closely with Kathleen to make sure we're picking up what she needs for that, Brad.
Thank you very much. I mean, any topics regarding parity or equity between the existing building and the new addition or the option 1 and option 2, I very much would like to hear what your direction is. So, we're going to be talking about all 14 divisions of the spec essentially, but casework seems to be one of those that comes up more than most. Thank you all very much for your time and dedication today. I really appreciate you going through this in such detail. I know it's a lot of material. I wish we could have gotten it to you faster, but obviously it was quite a heavy lift to get it.
You did great, thank you.
You did great, and our feedback is kind of minor on this, so that's a good progress for everyone, so that's awesome too.
And so this group is scheduled to meet again on November 9th. Is that good? Like, do you feel like, so the scopes narratives are going to DEW on the 1st? Well, do we have a reason to meet as this committee on the,
We
on?
still have the EEI AMS project, so I wanna.
We'll be able to talk about that. then.
Yes,
Perfect.
yes.
Okay, so we'll keep this on the 9th. Okay, that Brad, sorry,
Well,
that's
this-
a sidebar thing that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
we need to-
will, I am away on vacation on the 9th, someplace
Yep.
I hope that will be warm.
Not for you. Yeah, that's not for you.
Doesn't go.
Yep, we're good. Thank you for your time, Brad.
Okay.
Have a great day.
You too, guys. Thanks very much.
Bye.
Bye, Amy,
Bye-bye.
thanks.
Bye, Amy.
Is Amy there? Bye.
We done the meeting?
We can keep going.
Yeah, you can stay on, right?
What time?
Wanted to,
Amy, I guess we're still going for a minute.
Just for a second.
yeah, I
So, our,
wanted to talk
Let
about
me
these
see.
things too.
yep. Go ahead, Amy.
So, it sounds like we are likely, or at least at this point, moving forward this year. Is that? And the reason I ask is there's a few things that need to happen on the finance end. So I'm going to need to re-engage bond counsel, and I'm also going to need to once we have a number, I'm going to need to be able to give that to the bond bank so that they can run some amortization schedules. And then there's lots of notices that have to go out. So there's a lot that needs to happen. And I need to meet deadlines for getting things to newspapers, for notices and whatnot prior to the public hearing. So do you all want me to operate on the assumption that we're moving forward and that I get all of those things underway?
I think that's the assumption right now. You know, until the board meets and hashes this out with the cost on December 5th, you know, it could change, but right now, I think that's what we've been working towards.
Okay.
I mean, if they can get us
I
numbers
feel
by
like
December
noted.
5th, then.
Right. I mean,
Yeah,
we're
I
not gonna put something out half cocked, right? So if we get there on December 5th and we don't feel like it's there and it's ready, it could change, but I think right now the goal that we've been working towards is that we were, you know, hoping to get something out.
But it's
So
a
some of
fair
the work-
challenge timetable already.
It is, but as the board needs to take that up.
Yeah,
on
it's a
the
board
consideration
decision.
of it.
It's not to have much time to advocate and explain to the community. Last year, we had pretty much the project in the fall. We voted, I think, in November to put on the warrant, but it was, you know, reduced, and we were doing a lot of kitchen table advocacy. This year with a fresh approach, it's gonna take a lot more advocacy with almost no time, because once December 5th, you go to Christmas. People aren't paying attention. We're gonna have to dig in November. We can talk about at the November meeting.
I think it gives us January, February. It's really what it gives us. It doesn't give us.
Deliberative it's 5 weeks maybe. And then you have some time between deliberative and the vote.
I mean, the difference this year, though, is the community has seen, you know, they know that this is something that's out there, right? That there's a potential, or not a potential. I mean, I think they're expecting.
I don't think they're expecting it. I don't think it's necessarily true. People
I guess it depends on who you.
People I talk to
who you
aren't
talk
quite
to.
sure what's coming down. I mean, I would expect you guys to approve you approve worse plans, so I expect you all to approve this and try to get to deliberative with it. I think
I think
Amy's-
that's a little condescending.
It is, I think that's something, but you know,
Not
certainly
really.
we treated it like this is certainly, I think, much more condescending, so. I'm not gonna feel bad for that, but yeah, I think you would approve worse plans, so I would expect. Amy, that they would approve this plan to go towards deliberative.
It's a board decision. We can talk about it.
I would plan on that though, Amy, unfortunately, that's what I would think you'd have a plan that way.
Does that help you, Amy?
I actually couldn't hear that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, yeah, so I think we march forward, you know, with where we left it with the board, but the board needs to take this up in November and have a discussion. Based on, you know, kind of where we are
Now, if
today.
you don't approve it in November, you have more time to get it right for the next year, right? Because what I heard today was the time was tight because we got a rejection in March. And then you kind of started your retreat in July. If you decided we're not gonna put on the warrant in November, you could do the retreat level thinking prior to deliberative could really be deliberating on the metric and success criteria, right? Is that true? You get more time for the builders to redo it for the next March. If you decide not to put it on the ballot, that buys you 6 months more of advocacy and planning, right?
Yeah, which
Probably
are things to
education,
talk about,
not much
yeah.
plan alteration.
Not much time.
We would just carry that,
That's an important part, Dave,
Right,
right?
yeah, education too.
If you're down to a month, if you approve versus say a year and a half.
So realistically, though, how much people pay attention
That's true.
far
I know.
away from an election
I know,
That's
is not much.
right.
I'm just gonna be very honest.
That's true.
How much are you pay attention anyway?
That's very true.
And so to have very,
Maybe a sprint is the way to go.
very firm numbers, we've already raised
Yeah.
the awareness for a need. We've already said, okay, this scope is not palatable, so to come back with a different scope, different numbers
Yeah.
and follow up, there's a case to be made, right? And that it's a more aggressive time frame, and we would still have to have multiple things in that aggressive time frame. But that's really when you have voter attention anyway. There are some who pay attention early, but not many.
That's right.
And we were able to go and do a lot, believe me, I was at a lot of the kitchen table ones. That's why I'm asking about teacher workrooms, because that's a big thing that came up from teachers from other places, right? And so I think that we've taken a lot of that feedback from those meetings. We've taken a lot of that forward into these plans. And so we've already responded. We will have much more fully costed out options, at least 2 options, which was one of the major things that came back to us. And so we've heard from those who are engaged. And I think that going back and saying, okay, these were your questions, these were the things, here's our responses, and doing it so long as we know that we've got firm numbers, I think it's doable.
Remember, you got 60-40 last year, so we need. Of every 3 voters that voted no last year, you need 1 of them to flip to yes, minimum. You need 33% flippage of no's to yeses, right? So the kitchen tables need to be focused on the previous no voters. That's the real work.
Well, and I think
Right,
that-
so if it is a month enough time, that should come to the board's decision. I also think if you put it on that's full side. If you put it on the ballot and it gets rejected again, 60-40, whatever, 50-50, whatever, I think you're burning capital compared to saying we're gonna take more time to earn the respect of the community, but it's up to your decision.
I think we try and get
Yeah, no, I think it's a worthy conversation, that again needs to happen.
Well,
I try to get the Ways and Means Committee to come on the 14th.
But the ways and means picked to support this, so that's not really
Make sure they come.
relevant.
I wanna make sure they come and have that, to the board meeting. You need to
Yeah.
See the presentation.
I'm sorry.
Yep.
I didn't
Hold
hear,
on,
I didn't
hold on.
hear what you just said, Greg.
The moderator of the school district came to a school meeting and said that she is going to pick the Ways and Means members just to approve all of these items by the board. So it's not really a feedback that's really useful from who voted previously no. You want to win those voters. You want to win the voters that previously voted no, and the Ways and Means members is made up of all supporters of whatever you put forward. At the first Ways and Means meeting this year, for example, people are already supporting the facilities project, and Amy reminded them there is no plan yet. But so you're going to get all those people voting for any plan you put forward. But I think to really win the vote in March, you've got to focus on people who voted no last year and probably the year before.
Well, I think even those who voted yes before, if it's a different project, it's not an automatic for anybody.
I agree.
I think that when
But it's a
we,
minority, 40%.
when we educate, right? And it's, here's what it is. I think that we've addressed some of the concerns, I think. But again, this is a broader, there's only 2 board members here, so it's a broader board discussion. But
Well, I think all this community, because this is the group, hopefully, that's going to be best advocates for the plan, because we're probably more familiar with it than the board as a whole, or Ways and Means, or whatever, because we've been in more meetings, right? So that's really how I see my role, is like, once we decide on something, to advocate with the groups that voted no. I think that's the most important voter block. Maybe I'm misreading it. I'm very bad at reading voters, but my interpretation would be, it's the ones you didn't get, you want to win over.
I don't disagree, but I do think it's important to educate all, and I do see
Yeah.
your point, that you're right, we have to flip some that, for whatever their reason was no, try to get them
Right.
to a yes.
And I'll tell you, I'm leaning towards a yes on this one. This is a lot better than last year to me. And I like that you having as an engineer, I like having multiple options, right? This seems much more professional of a proposal. And when I was in the last town, I voted for a building project. This is trending a lot more similar to what that was looking like. I feel a lot better with this plan,
I'm happy to hear you say that, because
my bias.
well, and I think
I'm
that
more
some
for-
of your concerns were some of the ones that, like you say, that the no votes had some of the same concerns, right?
Right.
And so if you feel like we've addressed some of your concerns, then helping.
Yeah, I don't love this, but I'm much more in favor of it.
Having you to understand and help advocate to others who may also have
Right.
been on that side, I agree, and that's why I'm really glad that you have chosen to come and be
Yeah, well, thanks,
engaged.
your
here.
insistence, thanks Terry for taking me to be here, thank you.
So, okay, no, I think it's.
I would like,
fair.
if we could have a meeting without them, I'd like to maybe think about, I want to understand what the option, I think Tom called it. Plan B, it was between the canceled vote because of the snowstorm in March, and then there was, you were on the board, and then there was a vote. And there was an emergency meeting put in, the only agenda item was present the Plan B, which essentially was like all portable, something like that, and it was a very low cost, you remember that Plan B meeting? I mean, to me, that's another big, as Tyler would say, big matzo ball hanging out there. We need to understand that as an alternative, because that was presented by the board as a special plan prior to a vote. It resulted in probably decisions being made. I think Colorado said no on Article 12 because you guys did present a Plan B that was significantly cheaper. Remember this?
I don't remember Plan B with just portables.
Okay, it's all on the YouTube, so I can send that to the group. Say, remember this plan? We should discuss this plan. Either say this isn't a real plan, this is simply voter manipulation before an election, or this was a legit plan that now we think we don't like for some other reason.
I think it was saying that if we can't move the ball at some point,
100%.
what
Thank you.
would other options be, right? And at one point, there were a lot of portables over there, and
I mean,
when.
Victoria presented it, it was really good.
I'm gonna put a pin in that real quick. I'm not trying to end your conversation. Amy, do you have anything else? Cause I know we're past time now. Do you have any other questions for the committee?
No, I'm good. So I'm gonna re-engage bond counsel. I'm gonna reach out to the bond bank and get some information on interest rates. We don't have a number yet, but at least I can get some information for this committee. So we know what we're likely looking at for different terms. And then I'll get the calendar together to make sure we get all of our noticing done properly.
Awesome, great.
Sorry, Amy, I know it's a lot of work.
Thanks, Amy. Thanks for calling in.
Thanks, Amy.
She's getting good at this. Amy's getting good for your experience.
Well, unfortunately, yes.
Okay, sorry. I
That
just
was-
wanted to
I think
make sure to let Amy.
That's the alternative. That's the cheapest alternative you guys ever presented, the official board, not you, but the previous board.
Well, I think.
I don't know yet.
Victoria gave a really good,
Oh,
brief
you're
on
talking
it.
about that. You're talking about that.
Yeah, Plan B, what Victoria and Tom presented, prior to the election.
The only thing I remember was a couple of slides saying how much it would cost for 12 portables.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know that was a fully fleshed out.
It was not a full flushed out.
Plan, and it never came before the
They were
committee as a plan or a
The committee is
recommendation.
irrelevant if the board doesn't want you. I
100%.
mean, apparently the board went without you, they went without waiting me. I never saw it till the meeting either. I went to the meeting, I don't know what it was. And that was, what was they presented a Plan B like 2 weeks before there was an election. And I said, well, I'll look into it. And this is the alternative. If you don't vote for Article 12, this is what you're gonna be getting.
No,
So
I-
we need the irresponsible, I mean, I think people remember that, if they don't, I'll remind them best I can, that there was actually a plan put out, now, was that just the electioneering, or was it actually a serious plan? That, I wanna understand that, and I think the voters wanna understand how serious that this group is, and then I wanna understand, if that's serious, why aren't we considering that?
I don't think it was ever a fully fleshed out plan, quite honestly. I think it was simply saying,
We didn't cost it like through a construction
I
manager.
think it was,
No,
if we don't
it's
get the building, it's a comparison of needing this many portables or something like that. It was a comparison. I don't think it was actual,
It
vetted
was-
plan.
I never
Was it, I mean,
considered it a plan. per
maybe the
se.
board said we shouldn't have come before then, and presented that before an election with an unvetted plan that probably influenced votes, maybe that's something that should.
I think the question had been asked, what, at one point, when there was definitely an overflow of students and there were many portables, what would that look like now cost wise, right? Like if,
I wasn't.
as
but
an
memory serves me as
absolute
we're answering that
stopgap
question.
emergency measure, what would, what do portables cost out to now? That's my remembrance of it, was that it was
the only
just.
agenda on an entire board meeting that was put in.
I don't remember that being a plan. I mean, I was on JFAC at the time.
It wasn't a back review.
No, I just mean like but we always had conversations about it, like, and I remember talking like, well, what do portables cost? And I feel like.
Yeah,
that
I
kinda
think it was
been
just
the
an
answer too.
informational thing.
You think it's a meeting just for that?
Yeah, look at the March minutes, March, whatever it was, between March 14th was the planned election, I think it was March 28th was the election. It was somewhere in that time frame. There was a board meeting, you were there, Roger was not
I've never
there,
been there.
Terry was there.
I
Satan was not there, I was there, Dwayne was there, and it was the board, that was the
think it
entire.
was just got back to the country. I had been out of country most of March, last March.
Okay. Victoria gave most of the brief, Tom introduced it as Plan B. I was under the impression that
You think they were electioneering, but you said it cost us.
I was under, I don't know, I think a lot of things cost to vote, but I'm obviously not a good reference for what voters
So
are.
are you saying that because people didn't vote for this because there was a cheaper option?
I wondered that, yeah, I do wonder that, I
So the
thought,
board actions, you're
My-
saying that the board did something that actually convinced people not to vote for.
I think the board has done a lot of things that have convinced the public to support their proposals, yes, that among them, yes. But I thought this year JTAP would focus on that, because that was introduced as Plan B prior to a vote, and I thought if Article 12 fails, Plan B becomes Plan A. And I've been a little surprised that hasn't come up, which makes me think maybe it wasn't a serious plan, maybe it was just one of these like, you know, what they call these things on that election, the October surprise version of New Hampshire February surprise.
I don't think it was ever meant to be, oh, if this doesn't happen, then immediately we go to this. I think it was simply saying, it's been a while since we costed this out, and it is another option to put into the mix possibly. Like we'd had enough questions that they said, well, what does it cost right now to have portables? If we truly cannot get something built within a reasonable time frame, knowing it might not be this year or next year, as another way that we have dealt with this in the past.
So it was legit.
And then we're trying to avoid.
This year. This year, if it was legit, if it wasn't legit, let's say it wasn't legit.
It wasn't a quote that our facility director worked on, right? I didn't work on it last year.
I think we simply had enough questions and we said, okay, this was a
Fascinating.
way
I
to
had no
deal
idea.
with this in the past,
It
what would it
really
cost
was.
now? I think that's what it was.
I mean, eventually, if we got 10% on that plan, we might be talking about a lot of portables. Right? I mean, we actually got more support the year before, right? Didn't we make progress, a little progress?
Things were up by, I think it was 40, the first year, I think it was 42
I think we went from like.
this year, 43.
I thought, yeah, I think we went from like 38 to 43. is what
38, so-
I think, but I haven't done
It could have
that calculation in a minute, but.
It
Sounds
could
like
have
something
been,
like that.
it could have been the punt option. You know, where we, you know, if we got 20% of this, why would we come back with another project?
Mhm.
Then we gotta work on that, and it wasn't an official, I mean, I think I remember how many pours it would take to do this if we just decided we had to do portable.
Right, and I think it sounds like we're gonna get similar amount if we pass the option 2. Because for temporary, like a couple of years of portables, it sounds like.
Yeah, during construction.
Which is very similar to what I'm referring to the plan, Tom called Plan B, but. So I just want to think we should,
Oh, well, I think
maybe I'm the only person in town that remembers that damn meeting, but I remember it very well.
you do remember a lot of things. I'll give you
Well,
that.
you know, I have a pretty good head on my shoulders, I've been blessed, I thank the Lord for my
You
good
remember
memory.
stuff.
Well, I think that we could speak. He may have used that nomenclature, but I don't think that it was ever intended as.
Tom's told me that, you're right, that's exactly what Tom told me, but that's coming after I lost an election. Where I said things like, as you know, engineering professional, we should always have alternative options, understand next best option. Then you guys come up 2 weeks for a rescheduled election and come up with a plan B that was a lot cheaper. And I think people that maybe I'm not an average thinker, but I think people like me thought, well, dang, if I'm gonna save $50 million by voting no, if it wasn't a proposal, maybe we said we were gonna vote for it because we want the kids to have the best option.
Well, and just.
And now this year we're coming up with 2 plans. This year we are doing the right thing of having, here's plan 2 we want, presumably, and here's plan 1, which is gonna cost similar, but it has these, that's how your story gonna be. We're written there, that's gonna be your story, I presume. I don't want anyone to come back and say, what you gave us this March, last year quote, why aren't we doing that? And just ignore it and demean those people and say, that wasn't, you know. I'm trying to tell you now, that's a real option in my mind. I want to make sure that if we're responsible, we consider that option be as well. So I'll send out an email to everyone reminding them that YouTube
So,
link.
just so you know, we spent 5 hours this summer. I'm sorry that you thought retreats for non-public are, they have to be by law, as I think you know.
I don't know. I'm not very good at
Any board meeting can only go into non-public for very specific.
I do that, yes, okay.
And the retreat that we posted, it was an actually facilities retreat, was not, there's no legitimate way to go non-public.
Okay,
We
got
met for 5-6 hours I think, this summer. We met once.
I
It was
wasn't
a
Yeah.
long time. It was.
And we
a
came back 3 days later for our second session, really 2, if you remember, we came
Yeah.
back one more time.
Yeah.
And
The next
we
two.
talked about a lot of stuff with the new suit, you know, Mike was there. And-
Brad was there, Dan Mo
Yeah.
was there.
Yeah, and we actually just walked in, we actually measured one of the days too, to look at.
That's why we had to have a second meeting, because we wanted to go through each of the rooms with measuring tape and
Yeah,
to get to this program with the space, you know, with
Right.
the rooms not opulent,
Okay.
right?
Yeah, yeah,
There's-
Tom was there and we
Alright.
didn't spend much time on the portable nuclear option.
yeah, I think that was probably an option. My gut now is that wasn't a serious proposal. I was just watching it.
But in the wrong way.
Well, maybe it helped one, maybe you helped beat a candidate in like, but you didn't get your Article 12 because it wasn't serious. I don't know how it worked out.
I just have to say, I don't think that the board was trying to manipulate anything.
Electioneering is it's an insult.
I think it was insulting to the public, and there's nothing like that.
So I'm
It wasn't legit.
Real quick, officially adjourn the meeting, because
Yeah.
we're way off,
Thanks, guys.
way off track here, so.